Welcome back. South Africa is still the most attractive financial market for international investors in Africa. That's according to the Absa Africa Financial Markets Index. The country remained in the top position for the second year running with a score of 93 out of 100, supported by strong financial market infrastructure and a robust legal framework. Meanwhile, the latest World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report for 2018 and 2019 again raises red flags for South Africa. Can the country be able to sustain its economy if it cannot compete on an advanced scale? Professor Raymond Parsons is head of Northwest University School of Business and Government at the Northwest University. Thank you very much for coming to our program.
Good afternoon, Colin.
Let me get your view generally on the Global Competitiveness Report. What's your take?
Well, Colin, I think for me, I've seen several of these surveys. They've been going for a long time. I say it's rather like watching a bad old movie. I've seen it before, and the message is clear. That doesn't mean to say it's not important. I think the fact that it fell by 5 places in itself is not a train smash. We fell from 62 to 67 out of 140 countries. That's not a disaster. I think the problem is that if we go back a decade or more, we were on 35, and now we're on 67. That is the problem. And I think from that problem then comes certain messages in the survey which say, here are your strong points, here are the pillars of your competitiveness, and here are the weak points. And at the moment, the weak points are outweighing the strong points. That is why your overall ranking has declined. Now, I think some of the viewers will say, well, why are we going on about this? I mean, why is global competitiveness important to any country, but certainly to South Africa? Because we've got a small open economy, so we actually gain a lot from the world economy. But if we want to enlarge our share of world trade, if we want to enlarge our share of world investment, we've got to be more competitive. So we've got to pay attention to the messages that come out of a survey like this.
But the message in the report, does it translate to the comprehension of decision makers on what steps to take in as far as adopting their policies and implementing them?
Well, I think you and I have discussed before that if we could factor talking into our growth rate, we wouldn't have a problem. We are very good at that. We're very good at doing research. That's why I've said this is an old message, but it's still an important message. And I think now that we are into a new political dispensation with a new agenda, we need to inform these agendas, whether it's the Job Summit, the Investment Summit, or the so-called mini-budget, which we're going to have next week. All these factors must now feed in to our ability to turn this economy around and to reach a higher growth path and create the jobs we want and make people feel better about our economy than they've done in the recent past.
So what do you make out of the positives and the negatives that are coming about the South African economy? Number one, we hear that we're still the most attractive financial market for international markets. And secondly, we now are coming very, very, average when it comes to global competitiveness. And I can take it anyway further. Looking at the mining numbers that came out today, they are not really promising. But yesterday we had good figures coming out of retail. Why are we blowing hot and cold?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is what we see in the Global Competitive Index. It's a mixed picture. But unfortunately, some of the negatives are outweighing the positives. So there's a lot of uncertainty, of course, among investors and among consumers as to where they stand, what they should decide. And we've reached a point now where in the first half of the year, we've experienced a technical recession, which we've discussed before. That was bad news, a bad headline. I think there are signs that we could be climbing out of it now, that in the second half of the year, we will see a turnaround, maybe very modest and very mild, but some of the high-frequency indices are looking reasonably positive. So I'm hopeful that we could still end this year with, say, a 0.7 growth rate. But I must immediately add the caveat that we shouldn't be debating decimal points when we talk about our welfare. We've really got to get this economy moving and moving fast, much faster than can be captured in single-digit decimal points.
At the moment, we know what could be going wrong with the South African economy. Anticipating the medium-term budget policy statement that's forthcoming and the investment conference, is there hope for the South African economy?
I think there is hope because we are wanting to tackle the solutions. That's the important point. We are trying to find solutions, whether it was at the Jobs Summit, at the Investment Summit, or interaction between key stakeholders like labor and business and government. But I come back to the point, when you look at our economic history over the past few years, it hasn't really been, apart from state capture and corruption, which obviously done a lot of harm to South Africa, but where there were good intentions, they were not implemented. And I think the important point now is to take an important plan like the National Development Plan by the scruff of the neck and push South Africa into a better economic future.
So now, on a parting shot, we have a new Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni. When he speaks next week, what do you expect from him? Well,
let me say immediately, I think it was a good appointment. I think it's a very strategic appointment. I think he has all the potential to do an outstanding job, and it's boosted confidence quite a lot. He will see in the public finances of the country a lot of the problems we talk about, whether it's government spending, the debt problem, the tax problem, and above all, the one theme that runs through everything is growth. He has got to strike the balance in this mini budget between showing that our public finances are under control, but that we are going to be doing things within and outside the budget that will boost growth and employment. And I think that is the message that we not only want to see come out of the mini-budget, but which also will be a helpful input to the investment summit, which is being held the following day.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
That's Professor Raymond Parsons, who is head of the Northwest University School of Business and Government, and of course talking to us about any hope for the South African economy. We take a break and we'll be back after this.